So, today's talk sounds pretty dry when I say it that way. What I wanted to call it was balancing mineral extraction and environmental protection here in Colorado. And I'll get into this in a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of preface it with some thoughts that here we are, a really varied crowd here today. Members of the community, members of western Colorado mountain towns. We work here, we live here, we play here, sometimes grew up here. And it's really hard to separate, in fact it's impossible to separate how mining really created the mountain towns, the communities where they are and how they actually exist today. Not all of them continued to be towns, but mining made Colorado, eastern Colorado, pretty much settled and became agricultural, still is largely agricultural. Western Colorado, take it back to 1859, you find gold right at the edge of the mountains, and that just opened the door right there. That's our history, that's our legacy. It brought a lot of changes, brought a lot of people here. With any kind of influx of people and the settlement and development, it brought the good, and it brought the not so good. But it's part of our past, and that's what we have. We know it's going to be part of our future. So we're here today, and I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank the organizers of this for the lunch and the opportunity to come here. But what I'd like to talk about is how to try to explain how our agency, the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, fits into the overall picture of what business and life and the mining, what mining has to include here in 2013. So, how we began with getting here, right here in Lake City, was with the prospecting, looking for mineral values. And I think today, even though our agency does deal with things like coal regulation and aggregate regulation and mine safety training and abandoned mines, I want to concentrate on hard rock and metal mining, because that's pretty much what our crowd is and what our community projects here are centering around. There's past mining evident here in the hills and in the valley. There's even, if you look around and know what's going on, you'll see that there's current and therefore permitted mining here in Hinsdale County. Well, past operations, if you could make money doing it and keep after it, well, the bottom line was always develop the resources, develop your infrastructure. When there wasn't any money in it, those things just kind of you shuttered the doors, or when things were real bad, sometimes just abandoned it, and that's how it has existed. In this part of the world, things, disturbances do last a long time. A lot of those effects from over a century ago or decades ago still are evident on the land. So, during operation, the taste and the smell of money being made was sometimes the coal smoke in the air and the siltiness in the streams. If mining had dried up and reclamation, which really in the past wasn't really much thought of as a necessary thing, well, those adverse effects to our air and water and land just continued on, and sometimes that's what we're left with today. That's part of the legacy. Getting us to that point, though, I mean, the mining pretty much created the towns. If mining went away, a lot of these towns just dried up. So, with the mines, obviously came the milling. Sometimes with milling, some towns hosted smelters. So all of these additional, larger, and more activities and operations definitely created a bigger footprint of disturbance for us. Continuing through the decades, over a century of mining, and on up into the 60s and 70s, not that all historic mines or past mines are still operating, most of them were shut down, but what was still there was being viewed, I think, by the Colorado population at large. In general, they were looking at the effects of mining, not just for the jobs it created and the influx into the economy, but what was becoming more of the mainstream thought, which was conservation. Words like environment and ecology and things like that were becoming more and more spoken and thought of. And it was kind of time to start looking at that aspect of everything, but including mining. And so in 1976, laws were passed here in Colorado, which created what became our agency within the Department of Natural Resources, what we now call the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. So, do I have to point this at the machine? Oh, do you mind? I'll just point the laser at you then. Okay, this is your pen here. All right, the good old days. We can come up with thousands of pictures that look like that. Yeah. Within the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, there's two regulatory programs. There's the Minerals Program and the Coal Program. Within the Minerals Program, we have construction materials, sand and gravel, aggregates, and we have the hard rock and metals. So, coal, hard rock and metals, and sand and gravel. Up there at the top, you see, if you could, oh yeah, that's fine, thank you. Department of Natural Resources, you're probably familiar with that, having heard of Division of Wildlife, State Parks, Division of Water Resources, oil and gas. All of those are our sister agencies. Well, DRMS was created in 1976 along with the Colorado Mine Land Reclamation Board. It's kind of a quasi-judicial board that oversees us, puts together the rules and regs, policies, and also carries out the enforcement arm of our regulatory programs. So, under the box DRMS, you see that it's divided up into Office of Mine and Land Reclamation on the right, with our regulatory programs under that. On the left, as I said, we've got those other two programs, Inactive Mine Reclamation and Mine Safety Training Program. Okay. I guess here it's the aspects of this. I didn't prepare this, but this shows some things that I kind of became aware of going through this. The bigger picture of our agency is we have 70 full-time positions within our agency. Those are within those four programs. We have the main Denver office, we have a Grand Junction office, a Durango office, and some small one-person offices throughout the West Slope where a lot of our inactive mines personnel are stationed. We have 43% of our budget coming from federal funding. A lot of that's for the coal program, and a lot of that's for the inactive mines reclamation programs, the grants. The other large pie slice, of course, are the cash funds and the severance tax funds. So that's part of what helps. We're not fully general funded. Some of our operators pay part of our funds through fees, but that's how our program's funded. Okay, I hate slideshows where there's just lots of things to read, so don't feel you have to. We're not going to be tested on this. But what I want to bring out is that the regulatory programs are here because of those long-lasting scars on the land, the effects to the air, the water, the land, the soil, the wildlife. Those are things within our regulatory authority, within our jurisdiction, that current operators need to address in their mining plans and reclamation plans. We are here to make sure that, because we know that mining is going to occur in the state. That's part of Colorado's future. We are blessed with great mineral wealth, and what we want to make sure is that we're here to make sure that those natural resources are taken care of during the operation, and that afterward, that the land is reclaimed and returned to a beneficial use. Okay, that's really key. So, protecting the public health, safety, welfare, and the environment while mineral resources are developed. That's what we're here for. You see in objective number 2, that line, the beneficial post-mining land use. All mining permits have some kind of reclamation plan. That reclamation plan needs to dovetail real closely with what the operator, the applicant, has declared to be the post-mining land use. Well, if it's going to be rangeland, save your soil. If it's going to be water resources, make sure you're taking care of any kind of contaminant that might be in the soil or the land there. So, and then the fourth little objective there, we do coordinate and operate in agreement with a number of other agencies that have similar interests, sometimes some overlapping authority. We don't manage land, but we definitely work closely with the Forest Service and BLM, for example, who manage lands but also regulate mining in that same sense. Okay. All right. What we do is the permitting of mines. We inspect them, make sure they're in compliance with their permits and with the laws. If they're not, we work with them through a soft or maybe not so soft enforcement process to get them in compliance. And part of that assurance that will make sure that it happens is all of our operations are bonded, hopefully adequately. Okay. Our Meadows Program administers the laws for sand and gravel and the laws for hard rock and metals. We require the lands to be, there's that line again, reclaimed back to a beneficial use, and those other aspects of the reclamation plan that try to address that broad picture of which natural resources are the important ones are wildlife, water resources, and the rest of us. We know that the health of a community, the health of our public, the health of our air, land, and water, that's not just good. It's not just good for us, it's good for the economy too. I mean, not addressing contamination or pollution or the reclamation of land, that's not anyone's long-term best interest. So that's a lot of what we try to keep in mind and get out there and work toward with the operators. Our authority is to require permits on these operations, and part of acquiring these permits or revising these permits includes public input, a comment period. We try to address the concerns as far as the ones within our jurisdiction. They're not all within our jurisdiction. We get a lot of complaints about a new operation, how they'll affect the noise and the dust and the lights on at night and the traffic on the roads and things like that. And I wouldn't want that over my back fence either, but that's not something that we address. We definitely have a very clearly defined area of jurisdiction. We make decisions that not everybody likes. As a boss once told me years ago, don't try to make everybody happy, because if you're not making somebody mad, then you're really not doing your job. So there's a lot of conflicting interests and perspectives in this business, but we have to keep in mind what our areas of jurisdiction are, what are the goals of this, and just try and not just find the best common ground, but just make sure that the operations are within our in compliance within the areas of our jurisdiction. Some of our decisions are appealable to the board, our Mineland Reclamation Board, and sometimes our decisions are overturned, but that's just part of our public process there too. Our operators are not just bonded, but they have to pay annual fees. That's part of what pays for our program, but it helps us get out there every year on the right schedule to get out and take a look at these operations. Everything is inspected. Okay. So here's some statistics from a couple of years ago. There's about 1,800 actively permitted mines in Colorado. This includes a few dozen coal mines. There's really not that many anymore. It's mostly the sand and gravel and metal operations in that number. There's about 300 active prospecting projects in that number also. We've got over 180,000 acres in active permits right now. Each year, we have to revise or review new permit applications. There's a few hundred of those every year. That number of inspections almost looks a little low to me, but that was what the database showed for a couple of years ago. Of course, we get citizen complaints. Our board issues a certain number of violations, but carrying the process through to the logical conclusion, a lot of these sites do conclude their mining and go into active final reclamation and reach that point where we can release acres and release bond monies. So you can see in those last few lines, we released 1,772 acres and 106 different mining operations, back to not being permitted, not being mined anymore, but they're back to some other use. Wildlife habitat, forestry, range, agricultural, developed water resource, whatever. That all works. Real quick picture here. This is the construction materials permitted sites. You can see the vast majority along the northern Front Range, following out to the northeast, along the Platte River Valley, southeast along the lower Arkansas. There's a corridor from, looks like Ouray all the way up to Grand Junction, I-70. Pretty much where there's the need by populations, that's where you'll see it. A lot of these ones are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, county gravel pits. It's just where they have to have them for the roads. Next slide. This is the metal. And other than a handful over here of the uranium vanadium sites out by the state line, these are pretty much all concentrated in this 50-mile wide diagonal stripe here from Boulder, Clear Creek down to where we are right now in the San Juans. Picture a few of the different kinds of sites we're dealing with. This is the Cripple Creek and Victor site. Up in Cripple Creek and Victor, that's not topsoil or excess overburden you're seeing. These are large valley heap leach piles of ore. Real low-grade ore, but that's a cyanide heap leach operation. This is probably along the Platte River Valley, where you dig a hole in the ground, you'll make a pond. So that's feeding the aggregate needs in the northern Front Range right there, but they're making a lot of water resources. Flagstone, pulled out real slowly, methodically, palletized, and hauled off. And this, of course, is the west side of that mountain up there at Climax, where we're pulling out molybdenum for our metal needs. So the different kinds of construction materials permits we issue. If you just want to get out and dig a little test pit with your backhoe, we issue notices of intent. If you've got a government highway contract, you get this real special short-term permit for the aggregate needs for that project, and then you're done. You can get a different kind of permit to follow on the heels of this if you want to keep operating that site, but This is only for the limited needs of that short-term permit. Our longer-term permits are the 110Cs for less than 10 acres and 112Cs for 10 acres or more. Okay. I've been informed my time's up. So we have the same kind of permits for the metals with the addition of DMOs, designated mining operations, which are the more environmentally risky ones. Our oversight's more stringent, but I would like to answer any questions you might have during our free period. I'll be here later on for the panel. I want to just flip through those real quickly. Let's go on there. We don't need that. I'll talk about the designated mining operation if anybody that's interested. We inspect periodically, sometimes more frequently if we need to. And let's see here. Well, we'll talk about how bonding's done. I'm sorry I wasted so much time here, but if you have any questions about this and how we fit into the community, the larger community up here, and the mining community, we can discuss that. I'm really gratified to see the evolution of the permit that we have right up west of town at the ULA, and how that's currently being changed to fit what the community wants and needs, and the cooperation we've seen with various agencies and the county and the current owner and operator of that site, LKA. It's really been interesting being a part of this, and I'm really happy to see that. So tomorrow's going to be an interesting tour. I hope all of you can make it. Okay, well, I don't know if time's up, but if anybody has any questions now, until I get the cane here pulling me off, I'd be happy. All right, good enough. Thank you very much.